For a long time, I've thought that if you want to see an example of someone who really doesn't get human nature, especially the electorate, Al Gore is your best source. I used to say the problem with Al Gore is he thought he was running for city comptroller, right? And so he'd stand up there and give a bunch of facts and figures nobody really cared about and half the people couldn't follow, right? Instead of saying something stirring or moving or that touched them on a deeper level, right? People always talked about him being boring, but it wasn't just he was a bad speaker, it was that he seemed to be unable to recognize and interact with an important aspect of human life. When I say that, I quickly think of a line from the conservative columnist George Will. Okay. So this was during the 2000 elections when he was contrasting George W. Bush and Al Gore. I guess they were then Governor Bush and Senator Gore. And he said some kind of Major League Baseball magazine had asked both candidates what they thought about indoor stadiums. Now, Al Gore said, well, there's this stadium that's this great technological feat, and this is the first one that had air conditioning, and he goes through all these technical things. But what really matters is whether you have fun. George W. Bush said, I like to go to games outdoors. Now, I think George Will is right in a way that this encapsulates a difficulty that Al Gore faced, which may be part of the reason why he lost the election. It was almost like he didn't get the question. The question was not, what are the technical things behind it? It was, what's your personal preference? Right? And he seemed unable to get that it'll work better if he just said, I like indoor games or I like outdoor games. Whereas George Bush seemed to understand that, right? Which is in some ways to his credit, right? And who knows, maybe a part of the reason why he became president and Gore did not. Now, when I say that, I also like to contrast Al Gore with both President Bush, the second President Bush, and President Obama. Right? For example, President Obama gets this. Right? To use terms that I'm going to borrow from Jean Bethke Elshtain, President Obama is able to think in symbols, not just facts and figures. Right? So I think I'm inclined to think that when he sings the national anthem or puts his hand over his heart, he really understands what that means on a deep level. And he understands what it means to other people that he does or doesn't do that. Right? And so he has an ability to connect with the voters, right? Because he's able to see these political exercises as something other than just fluff or some kind of technical discussion. Right? He really gets that there's this whole other level to human beings, right? And he's able to share it and really engage it on a deep level. Now, I don't want to go with the Al Gore's a robot thing, right? Al Gore thinks like a robot. It's not like I think Al Gore has some kind of mental problem. But for whatever reason, he doesn't seem to be able to tap into this side of himself for political purposes. Right? I think Presidents Bush and President Obama were good at doing that. And that's why when I look at both of them, I say there's a kind of sincerity there that really resonates with the voters, right? And I would say that's a good thing, right? That's part of what it is to do politics, and it probably is part of what it is to govern, right? They seem to get that. Al Gore doesn't.